Johnny here for Johnny's Car Care and Review. So today what we're going to be doing is a half live Q&A. So I say half live because, one of my favorite things to do is actually comment, and I want to be able to get in all the questions and answer all the questions. And I can't possibly do that while also talking. I'll just miss way too many of the questions. So this is all about the Maverick. So the 2022 Maverick. Heck, I got to drive it and was incredibly impressed. I got more than what I expected. So I'm going to be answering a lot of the questions that I've gotten over the last week. Now, unfortunately, or just about a week, unfortunately, I don't have access to the questions related to my most recent Maverick video, and that's okay. I'm going to do my absolute best to remember them all. Basically, what we're going to be covering is the whole question of, should you switch your hybrid to an EcoBoost order because, are they going to be building hybrids? So I'm going to be covering that. I'm also going to be covering the whole question of, is the tow package causing problems? Is there going to be no tow package? So I'll specify exactly what that is. Now, we'll also be looking at miles per gallon. There are a lot of questions in regards to the 2-liter turbos, miles per gallon, and also real world miles per gallon on the hybrid. Some people were asking me like, hey, did you get a screenshot? That would actually be very deceiving. It would make for a ton of views, and I'm not here to get views at all costs, and really I want to be helpful. The goal of this channel is to help you, not to get all sorts of views. I have a full-time job and that pays the bills. This channel is, I want it to be a community where we work together, kind of like a big family, maybe not close family, more like cousins, but we work together to figure it out. And sometimes, we can even have a beverage together and enjoy the evening. So this is coming out tonight. I'm here having a beverage with you. We're also going to be talking not just about miles per gallon. Like I said, if I would have taken a screenshot, that would have been ridiculous. Those vehicles, people get in them, they reset them, and then they do, the little test track. And then when they get back at the end of the test track, it just sits and idles until someone else gets in it. So obviously, it's not at all a real world test. Does not give you an impression of what you're going to get out of the vehicle in regards to fuel economy. But I will talk about fuel economy because I do have a good idea of what it's going to get in the real world. I talked to some people over there, but we'll get to that in just a moment. I also want to say that we're going to be talking about steering, suspension, drive modes, because there's questions about the drive modes. We're going to be also talking about, how to get certain things that are really important to people, like, cruise control, adaptive cruise control as well. So we'll look at that. That's pretty important. Even the adjustable headrests, because I'm actually finding out with my Bronco that actually is important to me, the adjustable headrest. We'll also be looking at, the interior. We'll talk a little interior, XL versus XLT, because there were some good solid questions about that, and I wish I still had all the questions because I like to give credit when credit is due. And also I've had help by certain people also in answering questions, and I like to give that credit. But today we can't. Sometime in October, I will have, videos, drive videos back up, and I'll really get into the specifics. 2-liter, I'll do just a section on 2-liter. Then I'll do the hybrid and do just a section on hybrid and really focus in to make sure that all the questions are answered and we're all really comfortable. And what I do like about, I made a little mistake putting out that video. I had made sure that it was okay. I thought it was okay. Anyways, we won't get into that. Some very kind person gave me a call, and it was very cool. A lot of kindness and politeness, but I just want to cover a lot of the questions. And what made me really happy is a lot of people were saying like, hey, I'm now really pleased with the choice I made. So I think I was helpful. I think I reached the goal of being helpful. A lot of people were saying that, they're really confident now with their order and they're happy waiting. Now, continuing on, we'll also talk a little about intelligent access, the whole push button very quickly. And, we'll even maybe have time for Hyundai. I'm being told I'm supposed to pronounce it like Sunday with an H, so Hyundai. Thanks for the help. So Hyundai, Santa Cruz. For now, I'll just call it the Santa or the Cruz, but the Santa Cruz will do, if we have time, a little comparison. Now, let's just put the pedal to the metal and jump right in. Let's start with topic number 1. No, the whole question of, can you really get a hybrid? This is a little fiasco, I'd like to call, because, a potential dealer memo got shared and people thought that this meant that there'd be no hybrid. That's not the case. I've been covering this for a while, saying if ever there were to be, for example, some battery components that didn't come in quite as much as the demand, so that the supply is a little lower than demand, it just means that you might have a bit longer of a wait, and that wait just depends really on how intense the demand versus the supply is. But I've got amazing news for that. I hope you're still watching the channel at this point, and if you are, please like and subscribe. Here's the amazing news. We got a build. So Marie-Pierre and I, with all the excitement of having our new Bronco, had more great news. And that great news is that she will be getting her hybrid Maverick built the first week of November. So that's confirmed. I saw it with my own eyes. So this is, for the moment, an absolute concrete fact. Now, of course, this could always move. It could get delayed a week or two, or who knows. But so far, this is really amazing news, and it really gives me faith that, and it, reinforces what I've been saying, that if there is a bit of a delay, that maybe it'll just be, obviously you'll get pushed back maybe 1, 2, or 3 weeks, depending on supply versus demand. Now, this is right when I would have expected it. So this puts a hybrid XLT luxury package build, nothing else. So luxury package, we're getting all that good stuff like the bed liner in the package. And, of course, the heated seats, heated steering wheel. Can't forget the important stuff to Marie-Pierre. And, sorry, my co-host is just scratching away in the office. Winston, hey, you're not really helping out right now. Sorry about that. You're digging away on the carpet. So we've got a build. That's good news, and we've got it built for the first week. So I gotta say it, I think I was wrong, because originally I was looking at allotments that my local dealer has. And I said, if things go really well, I'll be built at some point in November. And that would indicate no delay, because based on when I ordered, let's say I was the 6th order of my local dealer. Well, based on how many they're getting per month in September and October, that meant I should get built sometime in November if there's no delay. And I'm getting built in the first week. So great sign, no hybrid delay for now. So if your build hasn't been picked up yet, stay strong, keep up the hope and the faith, because your build might be getting done and selected. You might be getting put down for November. Now, here's the important thing to remember in all this. It all depends on your local dealer's allotments. So if your local allotments, and also how many reservations and orders they got. So simply put, if in your area a Maverick is unbelievably popular and all sorts of people rushed in before you, and you're number 35, but your local dealer is only getting 5 per month, well, then you can pretty quickly figure out what build month you'll be. You just have to ask your dealer, like, when do you think I'll get built based on your allotments? And if you really want to know if they know what they're talking about, ask them, how many allotments did you get for September, October? How many are you going to be getting for November? Because they'll know very quickly how many they're going to be, and very soon how many they're getting for November. Now, moving right along, because this leads to that next leaked potential dealer memo. It said no towing. Now, these things are meant for internal use. So, the people Ford putting out those memos knows that what the memo was the week before and the week before that. And really all this is a continuation. There's no news here. A big deal was made out of the no hybrid, and that was just for dealer stock. So dealer inventory, not our orders as customers, but dealer inventory. Ford was just saying, hey dealers, you're not gonna get at first, for the moment, you're not getting right off the bat some inventory to sell to anyone who walks off the street. That's not what we're going to be sending. And really, pretty much every dealer at first is just going to be getting their clients' orders coming in for the first few months. But it also said no tow. Well, that's just simply put, it's no 4K tow package for the front wheel drive version. Simply put, that's what the 53K is. 53K is the 4K tow. Obviously, that's still going to exist for the 2-liter turbo with all-wheel drive, but it's just not going to exist and be possible with the front-wheel drive. Anyways, a lot of people in the comment section did point out, if you're going to be pulling 4,000 pounds, you probably should be getting the traction on all 4 wheels. Now, moving right along, there's also a comment that was left, Richard Chacon made a good point, but I just want to run through it. He pointed out that the hybrid Maverick will require an average of 3,000 chips to make it. It will be delayed for quite a while. Most people don't realize that a hybrid requires a lot more powertrain management, such temperature equalization for different conditions. That system affects every aspect, even interior temperature, radio function, lights, etc. So basically what he was saying is, the hybrid version uses so many more chips, forget about it, Ford's not going to make them. Just because a model may use more chips doesn't mean that Ford's going to forget about making it. And actually, one solution Ford has found is that they won't be building any 2022 EcoSports, which, I'm not horribly disappointed about, because I don't think anyone is, ripping their shirt apart, ripping their shirt off and freaking out because they're not going to have an EcoSport. There's better options. It's called a Maverick. And, I think that's why the Maverick's being built, because another comment was that the Maverick's completely redundant. Why would anyone buy that when you can have like a Colorado or a Ranger? I think Ford, and I don't just think, I know, I strongly feel that Ford is building the Maverick for the most part to get people who are driving big vehicles and who are driving SUVs into a truck, because it's SUV priced, and even better, this thing's coming in at a better price than an Escape, or right around the same price, but the price is incredible. And anyone who has an SUV, who probably originally had a car 10 years ago, who switched over to the SUV trend, of course, when they first got their SUV, they said, wow, how did I ever live with this before? I think a lot of people are going to get into the Maverick and say, how did I live without a truck box before? But you still want something that's compact and can work in the city. So it's 30 inches less than an F-150, 11 inches less long than a Ranger. Really, size-wise, it makes me think of the Explorer Sport Track, which my parents had. I didn't really grow up, but I was a late teenager when my parents had that Sport Track. And it actually did make me have a bias that I also want to point out. Another point where I was wrong. I actually thought that the extendable bed was a complete waste. And that was based on Explorer Sport Track. We had a tough time putting it in. We had a horrible time getting it off, getting it out. And so I just was left with the memory that a bed extender is kind of garbage. And it turns out that the bed extender on the Maverick, I think, is a must-have. I'm really impressed with that accessory. And I got it pretty wrong, so I'll cheers to that. We all make mistakes. Hopefully you'll forgive me and you'll accept my apology. I'm sorry, I got it wrong. Now I want to point out that there's been a lot of, despite my videos saying it's not a CVT, I really don't like CVTs. I just recently drove an Infiniti QX50 that I loved the interior. I really liked the look of the exterior, and I didn't look up any of the power specs because I wanted to really live the experience and based my opinion on how it felt, how I experienced the vehicle. And I was wrong about that when I drove it, and I was like, man, there is no motor on this thing. This thing needs more motor. But I also asked myself, is it because it's a CVT? So after I did my test drive, wrote down my notes, had my impressions. I went and was not surprised at all that it's a CVT. So the CVT ruined it. CVTs are belt driven. And like Word 2 pointed out, and user Word 2, and a lot of people else have pointed out as well, but he pointed out in really one of the better ways so far. He said, dude, it's not even a chain CVT. Those things are garbo. Agreed. It's an eCVT, which is a planetary gear system coupling the ICE and electric motor. This very hybrid system of Ford's has been in vehicles for years now and cabs in New York City. With the system, are still running with over 1 million miles on the odometer. Also, I asked, 3,000 chips, where are you getting those? So anyways, that goes on. He says, P.S. my dad had that EcoBoost engine in one of his cars and it was not that great. So he didn't like it in particular. But anyways, he really explained quite well the CVT versus eCVT. The one thing they have in common is they're both, one gear. They have one speed, you could say. One gear. One speed. Because one's a belt, it's belt driven, so you kind of have that slingshot feeling, and you also tend to go up hills at 4,000 RPM, which when I drove those Mavericks, I wasn't high RPM. They both the hybrid and the 2-liter had a very good amount of power from 2,000 to 3,000 RPM, so they were really comfortable, enjoyable drives. The motor wasn't screaming. Now, back to that QX50. SUV. Heck, I was actually also really surprised to find out that the motor has a ton of power. It's just, unfortunately, not my cup of tea. And different folks for different folks. Some people will love the model, but for me, I don't like the feeling of a CVT, and I also don't like the high RPM noisy engine that it causes. So moving right along, let's now talk about steering. Steering on the Maverick. I love it. It has what's called EPAS. Sorry, that's the acronym. It's Electronic Power Assisted Steering. So what's amazing about that system is that the ratio between the steering wheel and the wheels are actually, they change based on the speed you're going. So at low speed, they're really direct. You could say it's a small ratio. You don't have to turn the steering wheel nearly as much to get the wheels to do what you want them to do. But then at high speeds, of course, you wouldn't want that. It would make for, a very low ratio would make for a vehicle that would be too direct on the highway. So on the highway, of course, we want to have a little bit of play in the steering wheel. We don't want to just move it a centimeter and have the vehicle veer off the highway. That's not the way you want to eat corn. Sorry, on my highways, that's what's around the highways. It's either corn or forest, and both of those you want to avoid. So the steering was incredible. I absolutely loved it. By the way, I also love the steering on my Bronco. Now, moving right along, the suspension. A lot of people were asking, how's the suspension in the 2-liter versus the hybrid? And I think that's because a lot of people are wondering if they should switch to an EcoBoost. And also maybe even wondering, I think a lot of people are still at the should I order this phase? And I'd definitely say a big, huge absolutely. It didn't just meet my expectations, it beat my expectations in pretty much every way. I haven't found, I've been trying to think about it and be like, well, what did I not like? Well, I think what I didn't like is what many people are mentioning, and it's very reasonable. The XL doesn't have cruise control, but it also has LED lights in the front. It has all sorts of equipment, such as the 8-inch touchscreen that works. It doesn't have Sync 3, of course, that comes on the Lariat, but it does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So, and I've been using Android Auto deliberately in my Bronco so that I could talk about it. It works great in the Ford. So in my Ford Bronco, Android Auto works great, and I'm going to assume that it's going to also work great and be a fun, good system in the Maverick. So the suspension in either model, I didn't really notice much of a difference. I really liked it in both. What I did notice in the hybrid is that I forgot it was a hybrid, which never happens to me. Normally when I drive a hybrid, I'm like, oh yeah, noisy, missing power. And I feel like, I have to sacrifice something and give up something to do something that I should be more willingly to do, and that's, to make good environmental choices. Now, I did do one today. I spent all morning bringing things to not the dump, but the eco center. So that was Marie-Pierre's doing, and she's good for me. She's making me into a better person, making better decisions. And normally when it comes to vehicles, I'm just not able to make that move because I'm not a fan of how the system works when it's a hybrid. Noisy, lack of power. I can't handle those things, but the Maverick handled great, the hybrid had plenty of power, and it was really smooth to the point where it kind of actually reminded me of driving my Lincoln MKZ 2017, big black mags, gorgeous vehicle, and unbelievably smooth. Well, the Maverick made me think of that, but with more of course, of truck feeling. And I knew that when I went over the speed bumps, I was like, okay, yeah, this is a truck. This makes sense. Which brings me to another point. Some people are saying, oh, the Santa Cruz is way better because you can put, you know, a little more payload into the vehicle. And they're not saying a little more, they're like way more payload. Well, I think it's 1,600 pounds. Let me just check my notes. I took a lot of notes. But anyways, the point I want to get to about the Santa Cruz is you can only put 600 pounds in the bed. So you might want to say, you know, whatever payload they want to claim, what's important is what you can put in the bed. And Ford has made it very clear. I think they're saying, you know, 41 bags of mulch or whatever it may be. It works out to 1,500 pounds in the bed. That's why I want a Maverick. All spring, I seem to be picking up stuff for the gardens and pool. And in the fall, same thing. And, you know, I do have intentions to, you know, be able to throw in kayaks and whatnot. So they don't weigh very much. That I need that weight. Sometimes I have projects where, you know, I just fill it with dirt, cement bags. My driveway needs to be redone, so I'm sure it'll be used to pick up supplies. And furthermore, going back to miles per gallon, because this was probably the most important issue to most people. So I'm just going to get my notes on this. For miles per gallon, I was actually pretty darn impressed. So if anyone in the comments section, or maybe we can do this, I'll do this live. I did say that this, you know, this is a half live. That's because as this plays, I'm here to answer additional questions by typing. It's one of the favorite things I love doing on Dave's All Terrain channel. I just love being there in the comments section and answering and asking questions. So the XLT hybrid, 5.9 liters in the city and 7.1 on the highway. That's going to be very doable. I can confirm that. And if it's anything like the Fusion hybrid, I can tell you, or Escape hybrid, I can tell you I'm actually pretty much always able to beat those numbers. And there's been a lot of talk about the 2-liter turbo already online. The numbers for that were about 10 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway. I'm just going to double check that. Okay, so yeah, the Maverick, when you go with the 2-liter turbo, you get the 62-liter tank versus the hybrid, a 52-liter gas tank. But in that 62-liter gas tank for the 2-liter, what is it going to give you for fuel economy? Highway, 10.7. And sorry, auto route 8.1, big mistake, my error. On the highway, people are saying it's, you know, not bad. So 8.1 liters on the highway. Well, what I can tell you is the people that are using them, from what I understood, going from Halifax to Quebec City did 7.1. And that doesn't surprise me because normally with different Ford products, I can usually get about a liter less or more depending how I drive. And I don't think they drove all that slowly. I think they're, you know, they weren't just driving 100 kilometers. Even from my understanding, it was playing more, you know, it was more very what we would normally drive on the highway. So not 65 miles per hour, but I think the equivalent is about 75 miles per hour, about 117, 118. And in town, there's been a lot of talk about how the 2-liter turbo, the numbers that people have been seeing on window stickers is really bad at 10.7. Well, it would seem from them that that is also very beatable, that you can get that down more around 9.5 if you're careful, liters per 100 kilometers. So we'll need someone switching that over to miles per gallon. So, you know, I think the 2-liter is very livable. I think if you look at a 2-liter Escape and you go and test drive a 2-liter Escape on your daily trajectory, so go to your local Ford dealership. If this is what it takes to convince you to put in the Maverick order or not. So whether you put in the order or not, if you really need to be convinced about miles per gallon, take out a 2-liter Escape. Test drive it. Do your daily run. You know, if you have your daily runs 15 kilometers, go from home to work and find out what it does for you. And I'm not going to be surprised one bit if people come back and put in the comments that they got, you know, 9, 9.5, 10. And now, of course, if people aren't careful, I think people will also get 11, 11.5 in the city. But I think getting it under 10 is absolutely very doable. Just like on the highway, instead of 8.1 liters per 100 kilometers, you can shave a liter. But if you're constantly passing people and slamming on the brakes after passing them, you know, driving poorly, you know, I don't want to point out any certain manufacturers that seem to be always passing people without blinkers, cutting them off and then hitting the brakes, but I've mentioned it on the channel before. If you've been following, you know what brand I'm talking about. If you're one of those people, yeah, you're probably going to drive aggressively, and then you're also probably going to be the type of driver and human being that's going to complain about the consequences to your actions. Well, just a reminder, we should all be responsible for our actions and, you know, be quite pleased even when we have bad consequences, because hey, they're the result. You made them yourself. They're the result of your actions. So accept it and don't complain about everything. You know, find solutions. So there we go. That's what we have for miles per gallon on the 2 liter. And, you know, well, we already know about the hybrid, but I can tell you the hybrid doing 5.9 in town. Some people are going to do, you know, 5.4, 5.5, and some people are also going to do 6.4 and 6.5 liters per 100 kilometers. It depends how you drive. But the good news is Ford isn't putting out numbers that no one can attain. And, you know, we've seen this from Ford lately. You know, I'll give the example of the Mustang Mach-E. They say 450 kilometers of autonomy with the big battery on average, you know, of autonomy. And a lot of people are definitely getting more than 450 kilometers. Now, if you don't put very much effort in and you drive aggressively, yeah, you might get a little less than 450, but you can definitely get more. So Ford's on a good streak of giving us numbers that you could say they're gentleman numbers, they're polite numbers. You can do better. So it's nice. It's always nice to get a nice surprise. Now, quickly, let's just talk real fast about that Maverick bed, because some people are saying that the Santa Cruz's bed is bigger. Some people are saying that it's 6 inches smaller. Well, it's neither bigger or 6 inches smaller. What I can tell you is that it's, you know, it's more versatile and adaptable because it has 6 hooks on the base models. You get 10 hooks, I believe, every time you take a luxury package. And I think the 10 hooks, are standard on the Lariat. And you also have that 3-position tailgate, which is standard on all of them. Now, I got to see the 3-position tailgate live and in person, and having it the 45-degree angle, which can still take weight. I believe the numbers are 500 pounds closed. No, sorry, 500 pounds open, 300 pounds closed, and on an angle, 400 pounds. I'd love it if someone, and I can't quite remember if that's the exact order, but I know you've got 3 different ratings, and that either way, what's important is that when you're on an angle, that tailgate can take weight, making the bed go from 4.5 feet, which the Santa Cruz is at, you know, 4.3. So not quite 4.5 feet. There's about a 2-inch difference. What's important is that bed's versatile and can now, I know, can easily be used as a 6-foot bed, which way back in March when there was speculation about this coming out, I said, I hope it's not a 4 or 4.5 foot bed because it won't be, you know, usable, and it will remind me too much of the Sport Track, which we always, Explorer Sport Track, we always seem to be missing bed. That's not going to be the case for the Maverick. That bed is very versatile, very usable, but I do recommend ordering from your parts department the bed extender. So earlier on in the video, I did talk about payload on the Santa Cruz to specify that is 1,600 pounds, but only 600 in the box. And I wouldn't go with if you are going to buy a Santa Cruz, I can understand it's a sharp looking vehicle. I find it has more car-like style. So some people have asked me, you know, would I buy a Santa Cruz or would I buy a Maverick? Well, if I'm searching for a small truck that has more of a car look to it, I would really consider the Santa Cruz. And if I'm looking for the absolute most amount of power possible, well, the Santa Cruz has 281 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque if you take the 2.5 liter turbo. Just don't be fooled. Don't let someone convince you with a price and get the 2.5 liter without the turbo. I don't like the numbers on that. That worries me. But the 2.5 liter with turbo looks really impressive. From what it seems, from what I've seen, I haven't yet taken the time to go test drive a Santa Cruz, but I'm expecting the interior to be very good. And if you like more of a car style in the front and that's your thing, yeah, get the Santa Cruz. It's available now, and that's a big advantage. Some people don't want to wait. Now, we are going to wait for the Maverick. You know, we do really like Fords very much. Had 60-some vehicles. Obviously, they weren't all Fords, but we do like our Fords. But what we really like about the Ford Maverick, the 2 points that are a huge seller to us: price. Because, you know, I'm already dishing out dollars on the Bronco. So, you know, Marie-Pierre is a little more careful with her finances. I guess maybe a little more responsible. For me, a vehicle makes me very happy, and it's worth a very big portion of my overall budget. You know, I get a lot of happiness from it. Her, well, not as much as me. So she's got a budget. The Maverick is much less expensive than the Santa Cruz. And she doesn't want to spend a lot of money on fuel. That upsets her. She doesn't want her budget going to fuel. And the hybrid is far more fuel efficient than the Maverick. And heck, even the 2-liter turbo on the Maverick is more fuel efficient than the 2.5-liter turbo on the Santa Cruz. So, you know, she would probably just look at the numbers and be like, oh, 2-3 miles per gallon less while I'm getting a Maverick. And I'm more the type to say, hey, honey, you know, Marie-Pierre, 2 to 3 miles per gallon over, you know, the 10,000 kilometers, or let's say 7,000 miles per year you're going to do. Here's your overall yearly difference. So go test drive them both and buy the one that you feel more comfortable in, that you like. You know, you're happy when you open the door and sit in it, that you're comfortable and you like how it drives. Of course, I personally can't drive any vehicle that has body roll. That drives me up a wall. It's one of the reasons why I absolutely love the F-150. It is a big pickup. So is the Bronco, and the Bronco has no body roll. I'm in corners and the tires are squealing and I'm not getting moved around. I'll have a video about the top though coming up, because taking off that top at night was a horrible idea. Watching a quick little video that doesn't emphasize a lot on the really important parts made it so that it was not a very pleasant experience last night. Well, let's move right along. Let's put the pedal to the metal and finish this list. The Q&A must go on. Drive mode.